All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Connect SAP and SharePoint with Office 365 with Workplace for SAP, co-hosted by Microexcel and Gimmal. My name is Justin Sipek. I'm the Global Practice Director here for the Microsoft practice at Microexcel, and I'll be co-presenting and moderating the webinar today. Microexcel and Gimmal defined a strategic partnership in the beginning of 2017 to help bridge a gap that our customers frequently articulated to us. Microexcel, having a core Microsoft and SAP practice, have always been challenged with an effective approach to marrying these two systems together. Many of our customers like the ease and use of the intuitive user experience and workflow process automation that comes with SharePoint, but want to keep SAP as their system of record. Duet has never been the answer for us, and we frequently found ourselves developing custom services, API integration, and custom workflows to meet our customers' requirements. These solutions have always been tied to a specific SAP function, like purchase orders. Workplace for SAP is the solution that we present to all of our SAP and SharePoint customers now, as it truly provides integration and not customization. Our co-presenter with me today is Chris Vassilotti. Chris leads Gimmal's Workplace for SAP solution, providing world-class SAP enterprise content management on Office 365. Chris has been delivering enterprise content management platforms and solutions to Fortune 500 companies and SAP customers since 2001. During our presentation, we will showcase just why Microexcel promotes Gimmal's Workplace for SAP, as we will be discussing how to improve collaboration and productivity, improve time to value, and reduce the total operational cost related to SAP content. We'll also showcase how you can make Workplace for SAP part of a full enterprise content management strategy by storing unstructured content in SharePoint. So just a few laundry items before we get started. This webinar is being recorded, and a link will be sent out to everybody in a few days. Also, we'll have a Q&A portion at the end, so please type any questions you have in the questions box, and we'll get to those in the order that they are received. If you have any questions after the webinar, feel free to reach Chris or myself. Our contact info will be shared again at the end of this presentation. Lastly, at the conclusion of today's webinar, there'll be a brief survey. Please take a few moments and share your thoughts with us. Without further ado, I'd like to present our speaker for today's event, Chris Vassilotti.
Great, thanks, Justin. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all about our Workplace for SAP solutions. Before we jump into the main subject, for those of you who don't know Gimmal, I thought I would just spend a minute on what our area of expertise is. So really, Gimmal has a long history background of enterprise content management and information governance. We originally started as a technology agnostic consulting firm that helped companies deploy major legacy ECM platforms like OpenText, Documentum, FileNet, etc. But over time, as the Microsoft products have matured, we've basically started our business now focusing several years back on providing world-class enterprise content management on the SharePoint and Office 365 platform. And the capabilities we provide in those areas really focus around these four topic areas. So first of all, information governance. And this area is all about just enforcing information consistency and information architecture within your ECM platform, being able to enrich content with metadata that allows us to manage that lifecycle and make it easier for users to access that content based on that enriched metadata. Compliance is another key focus area for us. As I mentioned, information governance experts. We are actually the only company in the world that can allow SharePoint to meet the DoD standard 5015 for records management. So we add a lot of records management and compliance capabilities for those customers looking to leverage SharePoint and Office 365 as their compliance platform as well. Of course, in order to achieve the first two effectively and gain that user adoption, we also provide a bunch of capabilities around user experience, just making it easier for users to get content into the system, get it classified, and make it more easily retrievable by other users. And we'll see some of that today. But as I said, we're going to focus on the SAP part of our story today, and that is really about leveraging SharePoint and Office 365 as your enterprise content management strategy for SAP. This has a lot of benefits over traditional ECM platforms as well as archiving. It does help you reduce your total cost associated with SAP and really allows you to extract additional value out of your Microsoft investment as well as the content that is traditionally stored and associated with SAP. So what I thought I'd start with today is the typical scenarios that we hear customers coming to us to help them address in the SAP world. So first of all, for those customers that are familiar with SAP on the call, or those people that are familiar on SAP with the call, there comes a point in every SAP user's maturity that they realize that SAP is not a document management platform. It absolutely allows you to attach documents to transactions or master data records, but it doesn't have those ECM capabilities that that people have come to expect. For instance, you can't do version control on documents. You can't group documents. You can't organize documents into folders. You can't search for documents based on metadata. Basically, once you attach a document to a transaction or a master data record, the only way to get back to that document is typically to know where you put that document. And in some processes, like plant maintenance, where users are going to be going to multiple transactions or master data records, things like equipment records or work orders, there could be a lot of clicking around, sometimes as many as 12, 15, 20 clicks to get a complete picture of all the documentation a user might need to complete that task. So many customers, as I said, as they mature down their SAP path, they recognize that they need better document management platform, so they look to the ECM vendors. And what that allows us to do in our partnership with Microsoft and SharePoint and Office 365 is to extract those documents out and start to create document-centric digital workplaces. It allows us to give people easy access to content. It allows the users to monitor content, to be able to easily upload content and associate that with SAP, manage the lifecycle, and build document-centric business processes around this in a way that they're used to in their ECM or their SharePoint environments today. In addition to that, you're going to get all that capabilities around search, whether it be full text search now in these SAP documents, things like searching for a part number in an invoice, or more structured searches or faceted browsing based on SAP metadata, because we're going to be able to extract that key information off of the SAP transactions and master data records and make those fields searchable in Office 365 as well. And in addition to that, with regards to usability, we have some enhanced search capabilities that allow you to ultimately create a sort of virtual folder type of interface to the content and easily be able to filter down to find what you're looking for, but also critically important is to be able to actually take bulk actions on documents. So for instance, if an employee is terminated, you might want to take their entire set of documents and put them on legal hold, right? That's something that's virtually impossible in the SAP world to take an action on a multiple documents. So, just some of the benefits that an ECM strategy provides to SAP. The next thing we see in the market is that, while content is in SAP, it is pretty much siloed to the SAP user. So if you're not licensed for SAP, if you haven't been trained on SAP, those documents are locked away in the SAP database. So the rest of the enterprise really has no access to that content. And even if they did have access, that SAP UI, and you'll see some of that if you're not familiar with it later in the presentation, really is not consistent with what people expect out of a highly usable knowledge worker type of user interface. So there'd be quite a bit of training to help those users access the content anyway. So basically what we can do is we can change that paradigm, right? So we can take that content that has been locked away in SAP or a pure archiving solution where it's only accessible to SAP users, and we're externalizing it over into Office 365. That still provides access to the SAP users because we actually are using the SAP-certified method of externalizing data, and that's called archive link. It's a standard called BCAL, right? So we do this in a certified way so that the SAP users, there's really no change management to them. They're going to add and access documents the same way they do today. But now we've got the document in Office 365 where your knowledge workers can start to access those documents, search on them, and work with them. So now you can really expand the value of that content beyond the SAP users. So the entire enterprise can have access to content, but in addition to that, you can start to collaborate with customers and vendors and partners. And the user base on the right, I want to be clear on this, the user base on the right is never touching SAP. This content is native Office 365 content, and the metadata is native Office 365 content. So SAP could go down completely and it would not affect the users on the right ability to access that content and work with it. So this is a huge advantage to customers. They don't have to train their people in SAP, and some of our customers realize some savings in licensing as well. By not having licenses for some of those external parties that are working with documents only. The next area that people are starting to recognize is that, well, they've recognized it for a long time, but there hasn't always been a great solution. SAP is a very complex system, right? For SAP customers, this is a mission-critical application. And with mission-critical applications, there's obviously very stringent change control to make sure that nothing goes wrong in the system. So this can lead to really, very tight change control, can lead to long lead times between the time that a need is identified by the business to it actually being implemented. So it's not uncommon, obviously, for SAP users, SAP customers to have a large backlog of projects and have to vie for resources that are available to complete those projects. In addition to that, an SAP resource is relatively expensive compared to a Microsoft counterpart. So by externalizing these documents now out into Office 365, you have a completely independent development environment to start to build out these digital workplaces and document-centric business processes. So having the content and the metadata in Office 365, you can now use out-of-the-box Office 365 tools, things like forms and workflows. You can start to use the expanded suite of Microsoft products, and we'll see a little bit of that. For instance, Microsoft Flow can be used to help manage this document. And of course, one of the true benefits of the Microsoft platform is the Microsoft ecosystem, right? So in addition to everything Microsoft brings, you've got a very vast and deep set of partners that bring technologies to help you build these solutions, which instead of being basically trapped in the SAP world, you now have a lot of options to build very user-friendly applications. And these resources, again, typically tend to be half the cost of an SAP resource to build out these solutions. So what you wind up with is being able to deliver solutions very quickly at a much lower cost without being hampered by or impacting your SAP release cycles. We also get a lot of customers who come to us who have, gone down the ECM path in the past. Maybe they've acquired OpenText as part of an SAP strategy, or FileNet or Documentum, and they're really, on an annual basis, they're looking at, potentially $1 million maintenance bill, or perhaps, like many Documentum customers, they're behind on their upgrade schedule, and they're facing a multi-million-dollar upgrade of that platform. And so these factors of, upgrades, expensive upgrades, and expensive maintenance bills provide a reflection point for these customers to reevaluate and look at what else is available in the market now. Where else can they put this content? And did they ever realize all the benefits that these ECM vendors promised them when they made that purchase? And more people are starting to look at, obviously, Office 365 as their future path for content management. And so obviously we can help them do that. In fact, we are the only SAP solution on the market that allows them to leverage that Office 365 platform as an enterprise content management platform. And in these cases, the ROI is very short. Typically, we can get our solutions implemented get the customer migrated, get that SAP content migrated off of the legacy platform into Office 365, and manage that whole project for less than they're paying for their annual maintenance on those legacy platforms. So it's a very quick ROI. It also gets rid of a lot of specialized resources that aren't really strategic to the organization moving forward. One of the other things that's been driving people our way quite a bit lately is that SAP is pushing the HANA database, right? So HANA database is a very powerful database, but it is an in-memory database. And what that means is, right, that if you have a 1 terabyte database, you need 1 terabyte of RAM effectively running that system. So it becomes very expensive to operationally to keep any content in the HANA database that doesn't have analytical value. In fact, we went to Gartner a while back and they provided us some sample numbers of a retail customer and an oil and gas customer. And the total cost of ownership of running on HANA was, if you broke it down per gigabyte based on the size of their appliance, was $1,300 to almost $2,400 per gigabyte. So obviously, SAP recognizes this, and they even wrote a guidebook on how to move to the HANA database, where they specifically point out that you need an archiving strategy to get this content out of the HANA database, and you really only should keep content in there that has immediate analytical value. And this also doesn't scale like traditional platforms as well. So if you hit your limits on that HANA device, you're going to need to migrate to a bigger device. So why not look at Office 365 as a very compelling alternative, right? So a lot of customers have Office 365 capacity that is untapped, but even if they don't, right, additional storage in Office 365 is typically 20 cents per gigabyte per month. So you're looking at a cost of $2.40 per gigabyte per year, as opposed to $2,400 per gigabyte per year. And on top of solving that storage cost, you're getting all the added benefits of an enterprise content management solution on top of that. And then lastly, the thing that's we've been hearing more and more in the market these days, as I'm sure most of you have heard, is around GDPR, right? So what we have is the ability to segregate content based on SAP metadata. So your SAP metadata, we can interpret that and actually use that to decide where to deliver that content to and where to store it to. And this has become particularly exciting for those of you who may have attended Ignite or been keeping up on the Office 365 world, as Microsoft launches multi-geo Office 365 tenants. That means within a single tenant, you can have content distributed across multiple geographies. Basically, when you go and set up a site or a site collection, it's going to ask you what geography you want that to be stored in. Gimmal, with our Workplace for SAP solution, can then, as content is archived out of SAP, segregate that content based on business rules driven by the SAP master data. So this is a huge benefit, and we're super excited about what Microsoft is doing in this space. If you think about trying to deploy a multi-geography strategy with a traditional ECM vendor, it's just mind-boggling the resource that you're going to have to throw at this and the cost that it would take to replicate what Office 365 is providing out of the box. So we're super excited about this, and we're hearing a lot about this from our customers. So as I said, part of that excitement, and for those of you on the SAP world that may be on the call, you may not exactly realize how far Microsoft has come when it comes to content management, right? So traditionally, the people would talk about scalability and so forth. A single Office 365 tenant can hold 30 trillion documents. That is about 15 times more than the largest known repository in the United States today of documents. It can hold 12 exabytes of data. This is the most scalable ECM platform on the planet, right? And in addition to that, the capabilities continue to grow. So this is why both Gartner and Forrester now recognize Microsoft as a strong leader in content services. And Gartner goes on to point out that not only is the platform itself solid, but customers are really satisfied with the availability of high quality add-ons like Gimmal and other ecosystem partners that really help customers achieve a full content lifecycle management or business process solutions on their platform. So we're super excited to be working with Microsoft as we have been, but it just gets more exciting every day. So with that, what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you a quick overview of the solution, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit about total cost of ownership and time to value. So what you're looking at here is an Office 365 digital workplace, right? This is an HR example. What you're seeing here are a bunch of Gimmal tools. You know, as I said, we work on things like navigation with our mega menus, ease of adding and accessing content in the middle here. We'll be working with our drop zones and our active tiles, personal sidebar. This HR example is typical of what we can do with any SAP transaction or master data record. So as I said, we are an SAP certified solution, the only SAP certified solution that allows you to leverage Office 365 in this manner. And as such, SAP has built, you know, the standard to allow you to externalize documents from every transaction and every master data record consistently. So that's what we're leveraging. So in this example, we'll kick off, and the user here is going to basically just drag and drop a document from their desktop onto one of these drop zones with the goal of adding it to, also making it accessible to SAP. So these drop zones are configured to cut down on the amount of work the end user needs to do and also improve information quality, right? The less they have to think about, the better information we're going to have. So they're just going to choose a content type, and they're going to input the SAP personnel number. And that's all we need, really, is that personnel number to tie this to the HR master record. Now, behind the scenes, that document is being registered against the SAP transaction so that the SAP users can see it. We're pulling back metadata, and we're using that metadata to drive the storage of this document in the correct location based on our information architecture. In this case, it'll be in this personal information library, which we access through this active tile. So we can see the active tile has notified the user there's now a new document, and as we browse into that library, we'll see we have one document here, and as the document comes up, you can start to see SAP metadata already in the standard Office 365 columns. We'll take a little closer look at the Properties tab here, and you'll see the metadata fields that are prefaced by SAP are obviously fields that we have extracted from SAP, from that employee's master data record, and pulled back into Office 365. We also have additional metadata that we're using to manage the lifecycle of this document, the security classification, and so forth. And we have a variety of methodologies for doing this. Some of it is around inheritance, some of it is around other rules-driven activities, but you know, we're able to manage more information about this document than we can inside of SAP to help us effectively govern this document. In addition, whether you're using Office 365 out of the box or you're using Gimmal's additional information governance and compliance tools, you're able to manage the life cycle of that document as a record as well. Now let's jump over to SAP and take a look at what the SAP user sees. So for those of you who haven't seen SAP before, this is what SAP looks like. It's a bit of a dated UI. Users on this employee record basically access documents via what's called an attachment list. As we open that attachment list, you will see the one document that we just uploaded into Office 365. There's no indication to the SAP user that this document isn't in the SAP database or any other archive link certified solution or Office 365. It all behaves the same. So again, no change management for this SAP user. But when they click on that document, SAP is retrieving that document from Office 365 via our certified integration. So the end user can view that document and work with it as they need to and as they do today in SAP. Now let's jump back over to the Microsoft world, and I want to talk a little bit about back on that subject of extensibility. And I'm going to walk you through two quick examples. So the first one is starting to leverage OneDrive for Business and Microsoft Flow. So in this case, we're going to drag and drop a document off our desktop into a OneDrive for Business folder that is being monitored by Microsoft Flow. Microsoft Flow, of course, is Microsoft's new independent workflow engine that has plugins to a variety of different platforms, obviously Office 365, Exchange, Dropbox, etc. But so once the user drags and drops the document into that OneDrive for Business, Microsoft Flow is going to pick that up and email it to an appropriate HR professional. That HR professional will receive the document. They're able, obviously, to view that document in their Outlook Office 365 browser. And you can see that Microsoft Flow has allowed us to basically put a very simple classification task directly into the email body. So this user only has to look at the document and decide whether it's a resume, a training certificate, or perhaps they don't want to send this document to HR. So simply by clicking that it is a resume, behind the scenes, Microsoft Flow is handing that back off to us in Office 365, and we're going through all those same steps we did before with the drop zone. We're attaching that document to an SAP transaction. We're pulling back SAP metadata, and we're using that metadata to file it in the correct location. In this case, it goes into the career management library. So we can see the active tile has been updated here to notify the user there's a new document. And as we browse into that folder, or library, sorry, we'll see that, again, we have a document here that you can start to see that has a full information profile already in the columns. But as we look at the properties once again, you'll see a combination of information pulled back from SAP, again, those fields prefaced by SAP, with extended metadata that we've applied using a variety of techniques that are available through the Gimmal suite. So even though it started its life for OneDrive in Business, it's associated with SAP, and it's got that full information management capability around it. The last example I want to show you is email integration. Again, virtually impossible in the SAP world. Imagine a lawyer who has to log into SAP to retrieve a contract, right? If anyone's ever worked with lawyers, they live in Outlook, right? And anytime they need to leave Outlook, they're not very happy. So in this case, I'm showing another ecosystem partner called Harmony, which provides a pane directly in the Outlook client. So now a lawyer could browse the document library of Office 365 and even search for SAP based on SAP metadata to retrieve documents without ever leaving Outlook. But in this case, we're just going to use it to add yet one more document to the system. So this HR user is going to drag and drop a document into a Office 365 drop-off location. And much like we did in the drop zone, we're going to inherit certain information, and we're going to ask the person to put in the personnel number, which again is that single field that we need to tie this to SAP. Now, behind the scenes, again, associated with SAP, we pull back the metadata. We use that metadata to route this document to the correct location. In this case, the career management library. We'll just browse in there and take one more quick look. And you can see now we have two documents, the one that came in from OneDrive and the one that came in via email. Let's jump back over to SAP now and take a look at that attachment list. That attachment list has all three documents. So again, the SAP user doesn't need to know where these documents are. We've obviously have them distributed across two different libraries, but you can extrapolate that out to two different geographies, some information being in Office 365, some information being in SharePoint on-prem, different site collections and so forth. So you've got the ability to manage the documents on a very granular level to meet your information needs, information governance needs, but it doesn't affect the use of the SAP user. So they see all three documents. And of course, the SAP user should also have the ability to add content the way they do today, right? So in this case, the SAP user is going to go ahead and add a document to this employee record as well. and this is the way SAP does document attachments out of the box. So we now have 4 documents here, and we'll go back and look at that last document in just a minute. But before we do, we'll go to that first document, and we'll note that this was basically a change of information request. So this employee has requested to change their name in the system. So the SAP HR professional will maintain this information, basically edit the personal information. And so we'll change the last name and first name of this employee. And we'll commit that change back in SAP. Now we'll jump back over to Office 365, and before I refresh the screen, I'll just point out that we have 2 documents here, and if you look at the 3rd column, the SAP personnel name says Mr. Sanjeev Gupta. But as soon as I refresh the screen, you'll see we now have 3 documents, right? The 3rd document was the one that was added by the SAP user. Again, he doesn't need to know where to store that document. We're going to take care of that based on metadata-driven rules. But every document in this library and wherever else it is distributed across your Microsoft environments will have that updated personnel name. So we're always keeping the Office 365 content in sync with changes that may occur on transactions or master data records in SAP. And this last document that the SAP user added, again, even though it started its life in SAP, we're still able to use all our tools to build out that information profile of the document so that we can govern it properly in accordance with all our policies and the rest of our content. And of course, we have the ability to do full records management on that document as well. So everything you've just seen here, with the exception of the Microsoft Flow capability, is out of the box with our solution and with with the other ecosystem partners. So no custom work was done there. It's all capability that's done through configuration. The Microsoft Flow, was frankly knocked up in a day or so. So Microsoft Flow is a great tool to build out quick workflow engines, but everything else is really out of the box. So let's come back and talk about a couple more business aspects of this. And what I like to focus on here is total cost of ownership and time to value. So this information is a bit dated, but being an ECM, longtime ECM guy, I can tell you that these costs are not out of line even in today's world. So Gartner a couple years ago did a paper on managing an ECM portfolio, and in that paper they basically summarized what the costs might be for a 1,000-user company looking to deploy an ECM strategy. And so they outlined that you may spend $1 million in software in the first year, another 22% on maintenance. It might cost you a couple $1 million to implement that solution. You're going to have to bring on additional hardware, additional people with skill sets to manage that platform. And because it is a rather large upfront investment, you're probably going to have to spend a considerable amount upfront doing your due diligence on the solution as strategy and planning, as well as consensus building for this large investment. As an alternative, if you leverage the investment you already have in SharePoint and Office 365, the solution becomes much more attractive. Using the Gimmal app model for our Workplace for SAP solution, you're able to basically just buy a small incremental license. You're able to implement this solution with resources you already have in your organization. This is basically going to be managed by your existing SAP Basis team and your SharePoint administrators. I don't know of any of our customers who've ever brought on anyone to manage our Workplace for SAP solution. It is a very lightweight solution to implement and to administer. So you wind up being able to achieve all of the same ECM goals at a fraction of the cost of a traditional ECM platform. And in addition to that, ECM projects take a long time to deploy. So even after you spent $4 million in the first year, you're typically not going to receive any value on that because it's going to be a build year. So over a 5-year project, companies can save a considerable amount of money by leveraging their Microsoft investment as opposed to looking at legacy dated ECM technologies and architectures. And the other aspect I like to talk about is time to value, right? So when I talk about time to value, I like to talk about these 4 aspects of it. So how long does it take to be operationally deployed? The time from either, well, you can start whenever you want, right? When you identify the need, or when you choose your technically preferred vendor, all the way up until the point that the first live transaction goes into the system. The second aspect I like to look at is when do you actually receive tangible business value. So this is when the first department or division is fully onboarded. Hopefully they've been able to decommission some legacy platforms and get some ROI out of it, but they're really using the system in earnest for business processes. The third time to value factor is the break-even point, right? When does the value that I'm receiving from this solution strategy exceed the investment I've had to make up front? And lastly, when do you realize all the benefits that you were promised or you expected when you got this project approved, right? So if you take a look at comparing, again, the app model on top of Office 365 to a proprietary ECM platform, our customers are typically deployed in 6 to 12 weeks. We've done it in as few as 3 weeks. So again, very lightweight, very quick to deploy. Traditional ECM project is going to take you at minimum 6 months, more likely 12 months before you have any production users on the system. When will the people actually be able to use the system in earnest? Again, we're typically in a 3 to 6 month time frame or less. A proprietary ECM, you're typically looking at onboarding departments in the second year. When are you going to break even, right? Well, this is a huge factor because in the ECM world, you've got that big upfront investment, right? So it's going to take you years to recoup that. Our upfront investment is very small comparatively, so you're able to, get a quick ROI, typically under a year. And then the biggest question is, when are you going to realize all the benefits, right? If you're going down that legacy ECM path, you've made this huge upfront investment. And frankly, probably to get the project approved, you've had to bake in a lot of soft costs. How much time am I going to save searching for documents? How much risk am I going to avoid, by properly managing my documents? And while those are valid value points, they're very hard to quantify in establishing that the investment was worthwhile. And by the way, if it's going to take 4 to 5 years to recoup that value, that project's going to be fraught with risk throughout the process. Changes in directions, acquisitions, divestitures, changes in technology, changes in the landscape. So it's very hard to actually make these ECM projects successful compared to leveraging that Office 365 strategy. Because we have such a lower upfront investment, lower ongoing administration and management costs, it's very easy to get projects approved and realize those benefits in a very quick time frame without having to wait years to do so. And that's why dozens and dozens of customers have chosen to work with Gimmal and Microsoft to bring this vision to light. Companies like Tyson's Food, Coca-Cola, C&J Energy Services, Monsanto, and the list goes on. So major organizations managing millions and millions of documents on their Microsoft platform with the Gimmal solution. So with that, we will open it up for questions at this point.
Thank you, Chris. It looks like the first question that we have had come through during your presentation is, what about SharePoint on-prem?
Absolutely. So everything that I've just talked about, the Gimmal solution Workplace for SAP has complete functional parity with regards to whether you're deploying SharePoint on-prem or Office 365. There's zero difference in the capabilities in our SAP integration. And architecturally, it's consistent as well. Basically, all we're going to need is a single IIS server. That can be on-premise, that can be in Azure, and that's just going to broker the calls between SAP and SharePoint on-prem or Office 365.
Thank you, Chris. The next question we've had come through is, how does this integrate with SuccessFactors?
Good question. So SuccessFactors is a completely different technology. Obviously, the person asking the question probably understands that this was an acquired technology from SAP or by SAP. So it doesn't use the NetWeaver platform. So therefore, it doesn't have an archiving standard. Now, recently, SuccessFactors has started to support CMIS, which is an industry-wide standard for content integration. And obviously, both SharePoint on-prem and Office 365 support CMIS. So we're hopeful, this is a brand new development out of SuccessFactors to start to offer this. We're hopeful that that provides us a path to manage SuccessFactors as well, because even those customers on SuccessFactors often have an HR mini master in SAP ECC or S4 HANA to do things like payroll. So there is a great benefit to being able to view SuccessFactor documents from SAP and vice versa. Unfortunately, we don't have that offering today, but it's definitely in our radar, and we look forward to exploring the new released seamless capabilities of SuccessFactors. Be happy to talk to whoever that is about that as well.
Thank you. And the next question is, who are the best competitors to Gimmal in this space?
Yeah, so great question. I might have said this once or twice or 10 times, but Gimmal is the only SAP certified solution on the market that allows you to leverage Office 365 as a ECM platform and as an archive platform. So what that means is we compete on a variety of levels. We compete at the pure archiving level against companies like PBS and Dolphin and ASG, right? Those companies are solving the IT needs of the SAP users by keeping that database lean, but they're providing no additional value around that content. They're not, providing additional access to that content. They're not providing content lifecycle management in the terms of an ECM platform. So we compete with those archive vendors, but we provide a ton more value on top of that. The other people we compete with are the traditional ECM vendors, right? So obviously SAP sells OpenText, they're a big competitor of ours, but again, a fraction of the cost, much quicker to deploy, and certified against the same standards as both the archive solutions and the ECM vendors. So similar capabilities. And then we also compete with some other integration tools that support business process optimization. So it's a wide field, but again, if you're committed to Microsoft as your platform, we really don't have any competition in that space.
Thank you. And the next question we've had come through is, what are the capabilities of Gimmal to develop or deliver custom solutions similar to the one shown here as a project?
Great question. So, Gimmal we're really a software company, right? And this is why we're on the phone with Microexcel, right? So Microexcel as a partner takes our core technology, which is that document management, that data integration, as well as some developer toolkits to allow you to easily build out further integrations with SAP to build those digital workspaces. And I'll hand that over to Justin, who might want to expand on how Microsoft can work with Gimmal to build solutions similar to what you just saw.
Yeah, appreciate that. So that's exactly right. We are Microexcel, our systems integrators, right? We are cloud solution providers with Microsoft, so we do a ton on Office 365 and Azure, and we are not only a Microsoft services partner, but we are also a certified SAP partner. So we leverage our experience across the SAP and Microsoft stacks and our resources that are across the globe to be able to provide sort of that business analysis, requirements and design on what are you looking to do within your requirements, right? And sort of help identify how we can leverage Workplace for SAP to provide a lot of that integration components. We have the ability of doing the development aspect of it. We have the ability of providing you with training and knowledge transfer so you can take ownership of those engagements post-delivery, right? So we're offering that full service around requirements and design and implementation, knowledge transfer, quality assurance, right? That's how we're providing our value. But not only that, again, our expertise on the Microsoft stack, specifically Office 365, SharePoint, as well as that SAP component.
And yeah, so it's great working with Microexcel. You know, finding a partner that has vast experience in both the SAP Microsoft world, you know, is unique. But even when you find that, there's in a lot of the bigger SIs, there's a lot of separation between those two groups, right? So the SAP business is the SAP business, and the Microsoft business is the Microsoft business. You know, Justin and his team at Microexcel, absolutely not the case. These guys are used to doing joint projects on both sides of the house, and that adds incredible value to any customer.
Appreciate that, Chris.
Thank you both. The next question we have is, does this solution work with S/4HANA?
Absolutely. So S/4HANA, although it swaps out the database and there are some application changes, it still uses the same archiving standards as the ECC system, and you can find that information on the SAP websites. But they haven't created a separate archive standard for S/4HANA. They're leveraging the same certification as the ECC platform.
Thank you. The next question is, does the solution also manage data archiving?
Yeah, it does. So for those who are doing data archiving in SAP, that's done through a transaction called SARA. And the SARA transaction creates what's a proprietary SAP file format that's called an ADK file. The externalization or the storage, the management of storage of that ADK file is covered by the same BCAL standard that we're using for document storage. So, and we do have customers like Monsanto, for instance, and some others, Siemens, doing data archiving with the solution today. SharePoint on-prem, I think, in both those instances.
Okay, and the next question is, do the Office 365 users need an SAP license?
Oh, that's a tricky question. For those who are SAP, you probably understand this concept of indirect access, right? For those in the Microsoft world, there's been some some tension and animosity around what SAP considers indirect access. But the good news is that at SAP's annual user conference in May, Bill McDermott, the CEO of SAP, recognized that this was an issue for their customers, and they've come out and stated that basically once your data leaves SAP, it is your data, and indirect access is not an issue. So they created this term called indirect static read-only access. So while I can't advise the attendees of this webinar, on their SAP licensing, they absolutely need to, look at that with their SAP teams. But as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, the Office 365 users, when they are accessing content or searching for content, never touch SAP. SAP could go down and it would not affect their ability to access these documents. So in our opinion, and in the opinion of many of our customers who realized savings against their SAP licensing, this does not constitute access to SAP, because the users are never touching SAP, not relying on SAP programming for any of the tasks that they're doing on the Office 365 side. But as always, legal disclaimer, check with your SAP agreement and your lawyers before you make that decision.
The last question we've had come through is, and I can actually go ahead and answer this one. Will this webinar be saved as video and shared? Yes, we will be converting the recording shortly, and within the next few days, everyone will receive a link that they can watch at their convenience. It will also be posted to the Microexcel site in our on-demand webinar series, so it can also be found there. But as that is the last question we've had for today, this does conclude today's webinar. A recording of this will be sent to all participants. Also, you will each be receiving our survey. Please do take a few moments and provide your feedback on today's webinar. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please email Chris or Justin. Thank you and have a wonderful day.